Okay guys, last couple of little blurbs I've sent you have been about a national level identity theft. And I've been showing you sort of the setup of how this was done in very, very basic terms by creating additional versions of you. And we're going to today just leap into the real you, the you that you always think of, right? All right, so let's take a look at this American here. This is little Anna Maria Reisinger, an American baby girl born in Neillsville, Wisconsin on June 6th, 1956. Okay? And that seems straightforward enough, right? But what's actually happened is that you have a baby girl, and then you have a person in the form of a name that's been attached to that baby girl, right? Because there's a difference between a cat and a photograph of a cat, or a verbal description of a cat, or a written description of a cat, or a painting of a cat, or a video of a cat. All these other things that are representations or descriptions or labels, like a name, are not the cat. They're separate things, okay? So little Anna here acquired a name, which is, strictly speaking, a label, and she acquired a birth date, which is a description in time, and she acquired a place for that event known as birth, right? A birthday, okay? Now, we take all that for granted, but actually what you're doing in that process is you are naming the unnameable baby. The baby is always apart from the name. The baby is always the actual physical, living, breathing reality, and the name is just a descriptive label that her parents chose and that became attached in a similar way to her family. All right, so you have the actual baby, you have the baby's name, you have the baby's birthday, and you have the baby's birthplace. And the baby's name, the birthplace, and the day are all descriptions. Okay, they're not something physical and actual. Make that a very clear distinction in your mind. Now, when you put a label on the baby, what you're actually doing is creating what's known as a person. And in this case, the label describes a living person. And you can also then develop a lawful person and a legal person, or persons that are legal persons. All right? So, what happened to her? Well, her mother made a big mistake. People that my mother did not know came to her hospital room within hours of a very tough birth process, when she was still not feeling well, still groggy, still suffering from loss of blood, still suffering from 36 hours of labor. And they asked her, is your baby a citizen of the United States? They didn't specify which United States, and they didn't explain what a citizen might mean. Now, if my mother had been a person with a doctorate degree in American history, specializing in immigration issues or in election history or something of that sort, she might have known that the Americans never become citizens before their 21st birthday. So no, the United States being referenced couldn't possibly be the American United States if she had known that little fact about citizenship at 21. But she didn't. She was never taught that, never told that. And it frankly would have been an accident if she had been. So she assumed that they were talking about our United States, the American United States, the name of the country. And she also made another forgivable assumption, and that was that citizen just meant that you were an American. But in fact, the word citizen implies that you owe something to the government, that you owe service to the government, that you have obligations owed to the government. And essentially, for United States citizens of the kind that they were discussing and talking about and referencing, that obligation begins at birth. And that's why they were there within just a few hours to ascertain whether or not the baby was a U.S. citizen. All right, well, one of the strange things about America and Americans is that we don't have any kind of citizenship obligations to the government that begin at birth. That's what makes us free. Okay, so that's another thing that my mother didn't know and didn't firmly understand. But it's something that you need to know and that your children need to know. We owe no obligation to the government until and unless we reach the age of 21 and decide that for whatever reasons, patriotism or some urgent need to be involved, whatever reasons, we decide that we're going to take on the role voluntarily of being citizens and serving our American government. All right? So Mom didn't know. Mom was ignorant, but she can't be blamed for any kind of malicious or any kind of detrimental intent. She did not mean to saddle her baby in servitude to, as it turns out, a foreign government. That was never her intent. But that's what happened. And that's why on June 24th, just a few days after little Anna Maria arrived in Neillsville, Wisconsin, she was unlawfully converted into a British U.S. capital C citizen. And in effect, they claimed that my mother had agreed that I was that kind of citizen, and that meant that she waived my birthright as an American for me. She said, "Oh no, Anna is going to be a British territorial citizen and a subject of the Queen at that time. And as a result, my estate was termed abandoned, and an intestate estate called an American Infant Descendant Estate Trust was formed." I was only here for 2 weeks before my identity as an American, as a Wisconsinite, was obliterated, and my estate as a living American and Wisconsinite, including my interest in private assets and public assets land, the currency of my country, everything was taken off the books and handed to British Bar Association esquires as an intestate estate for them to manage. They basically stole control and left me disinherited on the basis of this misunderstanding, which was promoted accidentally on purpose. So there's number one, the first identity theft that took place.